Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, are any of you going to tell this young lady she can't dance if she wants to? And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more, as always. My name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals, and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more, in a light and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening right now. If you if you are and you're listening, do us a favor, subscribe, hit that subscribe button. Give us the like, give us the 5-star rating on your podcast platform of choice, basically. We're pretty much everywhere over at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, and we're on Letterboxd for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because, you know, if we love to write about it and talk about it and watch it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us the kindness and pay us a visit. On this episode, we got a fun one. We are diving into the world of M3GAN, which, as you well know, dominated the box office and delighted audiences everywhere as she danced our way into our hearts in a murderous fashion, as it were. The animatronic robot who, becomes sentient and decides to start killing people. It was a lot of fun. It's a fun movie. If you haven't checked it out already, I do recommend you get out to the theaters to go check out M3GAN, because it is just a wild ride that you can, sit down with the popcorn with and just get lost in, because it's so much fun. And I mean, and part of the reason why this movie works so well, it's a part of filmmaking that we're very passionate about. It's about the score. It's about the music. It has real good music in this film, and we had the unique pleasure of sitting down with the composer of the film, the one and only Mr. Anthony Willis, to discuss, how he got the job, and just, the process therein, and, sort of what's involved in it all. And it's one of those things where it's really interesting to get to talk to some of the myriad of artists who are involved in making films, because again, it's one of those things where it takes a village. And I mean, Anthony gave us some really interesting insight to the development of the film, the development of the story, and just sort of, at what stage he gets brought along as well. It was a fun talk that we had. It was a long one too. We usually don't talk this long with people, but Anthony was a cool guy. But before you go any further, do check out M3GAN, which is in theaters now. It's also available on premium video on demand. But first, enjoy our talk with composer Anthony Willis about the music behind M3GAN, because between you and me, it's a pretty good one. But I mean, obviously, just first off, man, thank you so much for the time today, and congrats on the movie. Congrats on the work on the movie, man. I thought it was great.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it's we're just like everyone involved is thrilled that that audiences have really, really taken this into their hearts.
Now, I guess walk me through the story of getting the job.
So Gerard, I mean, obviously, I think people can tell from the movie itself, he was determined not to just make another horror doll movie. He really wanted M3GAN to have, to really run the gamut. He wanted her to be able to sing. He wanted to have music that was sentimental and emotional. He wanted to have music that was terrifying, eerie, intense, noir, magical. So, from what I understand from him and our conversations, is that he was looking for somebody that could, wear a lot of hats. And he he told me that he'd enjoyed my score to Promising Young Woman, because of the kind of femme fatale aspect. You know, M3GAN is a kind of a 50s housewife femme fatale. So that was really important to him, that he had something of that tone. And then, you know, I think my additional background in you know, animation and family movies and adventure and fantasy, I think was appealing to him. So, you know, we had a great meeting and hit it off, and you know, the rest is history.
I mean, when you come into something like this, do you have like, I mean, are you getting dailies? Do you see stuff going on? Like, when do you come on in the process?
Well, I officially came on because we had to. I think it was almost as soon as I came on, we had to
For
get
the
working
song.
on the "Tell Me a Dream" song
Yeah.
exactly. And although that, you know, we kind of had that, you know, it didn't kind of finally come to life until closer to the scoring part of the process. But the initial melody was written for production on set, so that they could sync the you know, they could sync the voice, um, sync M3GAN's animatronic movements to the voice.
Right.
Yeah. So that's when I came on originally, and then I got a cut, you know, fairly early on in the edit. You know, obviously it's a movie with a lot of moving parts. So obviously the fantastic editor Jeff McEnvoy needed, you know, some time with Gerard to kind of get the cut going, and then they shared it with me. So I wasn't sort of seeing dailies or anything, but I got to see a pretty complete version of the film, you know, fairly early on, which was very exciting.
That's wild. I mean, because again, like you say, it's a film that has so many different tones. And I mean, I'm curious for you when you're composing, particularly when you're composing to sort of the scene and the visual sort of in front of you, like, do you have to sort of block out anything else you may know about the story and just focus on the moment, or do you try to sort of give sort of an expansive theme with maybe sort of hints going on down the road? Because I mean, the art of scoring a film, obviously there's a lot of creativity and a lot of things that you can do there.
Yeah, I mean, it's sorry, David, you actually broke up just a touch
No,
during
no, just in terms of when you're composing, like, do you have to focus on the scene, or can you focus on the scene sort of but still be aware of what's coming ahead in the narrative or behind in the narrative?
Oh, I see. That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I think on the one hand, our job as composers is to service the immediate moments of a scene.
Mm.
So a scene that really has to be tense, like we've got to bring out our, you know, our tools to make it tense. And a scene that's going to be fun, you know, the same. But you know, all the while trying to establish a language that feels a way of doing that, um, you know, that feels different and that feels unique to this film, as opposed to just borrowing the method of doing that from, you know, that many other films have used. So, you know, that's certainly what I try to do, and try to find some kind of harmonic language that I come back to. Obviously, you know, themes and motifs, there's those in M3GAN as well. Um, so yeah, it's it's a marriage of both those things, and you're just trying to create this kind of cool universal language that just feels a little bit, you know, bespoke to M3GAN.
Well, and I mean, I think that's the thing that stood out for me, not just with the movie, but I mean, particularly with your music as well, because like even when we were having like very intense moments, there was still sort of a hint of lightness in like in sort of almost airiness to the music. Like it never got to, you know, with Bernard Herrmann screech, screech, screech kind of thing is sort of intense. It still felt very light, very pop. Like, was that sort of big for you to sort of create the horror tension, but still have that sort of through the prism of essentially a like a preteen girl?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, yeah, M3GAN is an unusual villain because she's kind of the hero. Everybody loves her, and she's doing what, you know, her crimes are motivated by this sense of duty.
Yeah.
She's just kind of not quite got the maybe the right way of thinking about it, but she's got a little carried away. But I mean, she's got so much kind of charisma and panache, and you know, childlike fun and innocence, and then this sort of parental warmth. you know, yeah, it's yeah, so I think, you know, it was more about embracing her in the action and intensity. It was about embracing her kind of power and her robotic, you know, her unbridled robotic strength than really kind of sheer terror.
Yeah. No, I buy that for sure. It's definitely one of those stories where she's kind of discover. It's very much a story of self discovery, and I mean, I think the music definitely highlights that as well. But I mean, I've got to ask as well, just in terms of when you're writing a song for something like this, but then also doing the score, like how do you like it feel I'm trying to find the right way to ask this, but it definitely feels like you've got to turn one brain off and turn another brain on when you're switching from writing a song to sort of writing a piece of more orchestral sort of background music.
Yeah, it's a different thing. I mean, you know, a song is a featured thing that's very much, you know, part of the narrative. And in this case, you know, M3GAN is composing the song in real
Yeah.
time. So that was a that was something that we wanted to sell. That she's legitimately like written this piece because she's like that brilliant that she's able to accumulate all this, you know, references from the internet and make her own piece. And you know, I tried to, I mean, the melody for that, I tried to make it sort of believably robotic, as if you know, uh, she could actually have done that. Of course, I mean, I think, you know, she's so smart in a way we could have just had her sing anything really. But yeah, I mean, no, it's a different gear. But there are little kind of tiny little interpolations of that melody in the score as well. And then, you know, there's bits of score that also are as full on as the song in terms of how kind of upfront they are and how, you know, how bold, you know, kind of how, yeah, sort of on the nose that they're trying to be.
Now, I mean, I've got to ask, was Titanium always sort of circled as a song everyone wanted to use, or had there been some sort of back and forth?
I don't know about the specifics of back and forth, but I know that Gerard, it was something Gerard had added in the script phase. And it was, I mean, it was just a brilliant choice. And I mean, it was such a great song. And obviously lyrically brilliant in this case. And you know, and just really fun to do it, to do our own cover of it, and you know, get it to get it to be a little kind of tender lullaby that has a little, I mean, Gerard wanted it to have still a bit of Diva-ish quality to it in that context. As kind of M3GAN gets into it, you know, she's like a little, by the middle of the song, she's a bit pleased with herself. She's like, yeah, I got this. So yeah, it was really fun to do. And you know, and Jenna Davis, who voices M3GAN, did an absolutely amazing job, bringing, you know, not only the kind of creepiness and fun that she brought to M3GAN's performance overall in the movie, but also into the songs.
Now, I mean, this is probably impossible to answer, but I mean, is it surreal for you just as a composer to sort of flip through your Facebook feed and see reels of M3GAN dancing to your music? Like, because M3GAN, like the idea of M3GAN and dancing has really taken on this next level of pop culture. I've got to imagine it's a bit surreal. You can flip through your phone one day and all of a sudden you'll hear a piece you wrote and M3GAN's there.
It's very surreal. I mean, it's wonderful. It's everything you hope for, that the work that you do will kind of be enjoyed. And that's really all it comes down to. You know, that you get to reach an audience, and obviously like in this kind of audience is obviously still new, and like the social media of it all, and how the social media of it all has actually impacted the movie's success. You know, after the trailer, and helped build a platform that then, you know, Universal responded to, and they're like, you know, people were really excited about this movie. Let's make sure that they can see it. And then the people went and saw it. You know, in a time where it's just very uncertain for anything really, and nobody can guarantee, or nobody can predict the way that maybe they used to be able to predict.
For sure.
So yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, it's really fun. It's unexpected for sure. I mean, you can never know. I feel like as soon as you start like saying, "Oh, this is going to be great. Everyone's going to see this." You jinx it, and
Right.
it never.
Right. Now, I mean, I'm kind of curious, like, what ultimately led you to get into the business of writing for the screen as a musician? Because I mean, I look at your screen credits, and I mean, obviously, like you said, like you've got a fair bit of animation, some kid stuff, but there's always going to be pivots too. Like you can't do the same music for Ron's Gone Wrong as you would for, say, the Comey Rule. You know what I mean? Like, what was it about scoring for the screen that sort of attracted you to the job as a musician?
I think I think most composers, do this because at some point in our lives, and normally our young lives, we saw something that just opened our hearts and souls to the wonder of storytelling and the lengths that people will go to tell a story. I remember, and then try and recreate that. And that's essentially, I think, what I'm doing is trying to recreate for other people that wonder that and fun that I experienced as a kid. And, I mean, I remember like Titanic was the first movie I realized that, they built a ship in Mexico and they sank it, and they created all these period costumes in China and ornate. I mean, I just couldn't believe that that there was a place and a business where this kind of it's the ultimate playhouse of story of recreating story that people would do that. And then of course then that world building or world creation applies to the music as well, where I mean, for example, like a big, I mean, I was already well on my way to wanting to be a film composer, but a big project for me was seeing the very first How to Train a Dragon, John Powell's score for that, and just being amazed at the amount of melodies he wrote, that there's a deeper, like richer texture behind even what you see. It's that thing of, I think they talk about this with French music, is that a really good piece of, like Debussy is like opening a window into a beautiful kind of garden. But and then you can close the window, but you know that the garden's still there. And I think that that's what really great film scores are like. There's this tapestry that goes beyond the film, and really great movies are like you're thinking about them for weeks and months after the 2 or 3 hour experience. And there's this implication of a thing that's bigger than just what you saw, that little window into it. So yeah, I mean that's what I've been trying to do, and to recreate that same experience, and in different ways, and I think just the love of music. I really passionately love trying to get the notes in the right order that will elicit the most impact that I can.
For sure. No, I mean, I've got to imagine there's a certain degree of creative freedom there as well, because I mean, when audiences think of creating film scores, I mean, they'll have this image of John Williams in front of a 40-piece orchestra in this big sound studio sort of doing it. But the reality is the technology exists to create these very dynamic and multi-layered scores by yourself. Like for you as an artist, is sort of being able to be there by yourself freeing, or do you need the other players in the room just to sort of feed off to be able to maximize any given piece?
I think really good composition is essentially it's really good organization of sound. And so that sound wants to have no limits in terms of where it's come from. Meaning if dramatically what's best is a 40, 50, 60, 80 piece orchestra,
Right.
100 piece orchestra, then that is what you want to be able to, that's the tool you want to be able to select. If a really minimal synth score is the best narrative choice and works the best, then that's where you want to go. And you don't want to be bringing the aesthetic of an orchestra necessarily into it. And in the case of M3GAN, I mean, it's really a combination of all of those things. So there's, we recorded the orchestral aspect in Budapest, and it was something that mattered a lot to Gerard, that kind of classic sound. And of course, the challenge was to how to infuse that in a way with a lot of heavy synths and that they had their moment to speak and shine. And it was a lot of it was a lot to balance, and unusually large in scope of the different textures that we were using, just because M3GAN could hold so many colors. So yeah, I mean, I think that that's really what it comes down to. I mean, I think, yes, there's a lot of things that we can do in the studio, but it's all about that choice of going, I'm doing this because it's the right thing, as opposed to it's what I have available. Although, of course, limits are a wonderful catalyst for invention as well. So just, what you can make on a computer is amazing.
Well, I would imagine time can be a limit as well, because I mean, obviously, on one end, you're going to have collaborators like Jared, and you're going to be brought on early on, and there's going to be time, and there's going to be back and forth and feedback, and he's going to have sort of a clear idea of what he wants. But I can imagine, especially in your job, on the flip side of that, there may be a situation where, okay, the thing's pretty well done, you've got 3 weeks. How do you sort of balance the two?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's that thing of, you want to make everybody feel that even in a really tight time crunch, that the choices that are being made are really strong choices. And the only thing that you didn't do with perhaps more time was go down a load of avenues that weren't necessarily the right ones. That you strive straight to capture the essence of what the film needs. you know, Obviously watching a movie is such a spontaneous experience. So trying to catch into what does this moment from A to B need? What journey do I need to create musically? And that will definitely, that can definitely speed you up. It really depends on obviously on a film like M3GAN. I mean, there were so many ways to take it that all could have been fantastic and wonderful. So it was quite, I'm really grateful that we had that time to do that back and forward, because
sure.
It's quite original in its handling of tone and all of those things. So yeah.
Do you have to be like writing constantly, working on music constantly, like especially in between jobs? Because I mean, I can imagine on one end, you want music to obviously be specific and sort of fit the piece, but at the same time, I've got to imagine you can't necessarily turn off the spigot of working on music and writing music either. Like in between jobs, is like, are you constantly working on stuff, or do you have to sort of be focus specific on the need of the job at hand?
I think on some level, composers are always writing music,
Right.
even if it's in their minds, the shower, in their. But whether we're outputting it
Fair
on some
enough, yeah.
depth is a different question. Whether you're actually, there's a difference between an idea and then something that can go on Spotify. And sometimes, it's really wonderful. I've definitely done passion projects where I've had the chance to just sort of chip away at them slowly in the background, partly because I've had to just come back to them when I've had time between projects. But also just, allowing you to muse on the different ways of doing it, which on a film project, you often don't have that. And in fact, that in itself helps keep you sharp and faster for when you need to be. It's kind of like diagnostic, just sort of practice, I guess, that you're just kind of working what appeals to you. I mean, composing is just a lot of decisions back to back, and one or going left or right isn't necessarily a bad thing, but a successive number of left or right turns is going to ultimately lead to your way of getting there,
For sure.
rather than someone else's. And that is I think more and more, and that's obviously a huge combination of also the film's way of getting there and the director's way of getting there, and what was the essence in the writing and the essence of the performance. So it's never yours, but you're kind of guiding it through in a way that you think will be most impactful. And that those are, I guess, idiosyncrasies that you just continue to learn over time, that what appeals to you the most, and for your audience.
For sure. Now, just to start putting a bow on this, I mean, there's one question I always like to ask. It's a little dumb, but can you think back to the younger days? Like, was there one movie you saw, like with a particular score, that had the light bulb go off in your head that made you understood the real significance of the marriage of the score to the visual?
There were definitely a lot of them. I mean, The Lion King, The Little Mermaid, when I was very young. I think The Little Mermaid was the first film that I saw in a theater. And while I was terrified of Ursula, I remember hiding under the seats. I was probably probably about 4 years old, 5 years old or something. Um, and yeah, The Lion King, and then later Titanic. Um, just I think a whole. I don't know if it was a one particular moment, but just I was lucky that my family loved films, and we got to watch them. And I mean, Free Willy as well. I love that film. Basil Poledouris, his score for that. So yeah, just I feel so lucky to grow up when I did in a time of just such wonderful films.
For sure. Now, I mean, just to wrap this up, put a bow on it. I've got to ask because I mean, obviously, Megan 2 looks like it's going to happen. I'm not putting you on the spot, but if they bring you back, is there a like? How do you see sort of the music of Megan evolving? Like, because obviously, this is very much a coming of age story. Like, is there? Do you almost feel like there's room for like a little bit of punk rock or a little bit of Megan to discover her emo side in terms of music that gets put out there, especially sort of in a narrative story like we've been getting with this first one?
I think music is definitely going to be a big part of Megan's um, development, and I think it would really depend on you know how the narrative itself is developed.
Right.
There's so many ways they could take this. There's so many fun things. So if I was lucky enough to come back, I would obviously I would want to explore what aspects of the score really worked, and maybe improve on ones that were less effective, and but then see what then bring that back to kind of bring audiences back into the same world. But also, I'm sure this will be a new world. It will be, I know there was a lot of publicity done for the movie where they had multiple Megan dolls going around all over New York City. So I can see there being like some Megan clones, or I can see there being, maybe an imposter Megan. I've always loved I think it was the Jumanji The Next Level, where the avatars like will switch for a little bit.
Right, right.
You can see some kind of funny gags where somebody gets into a Megan and she gets upset, and there's like a Megan off. So there's all sorts of things that would then probably require a new narrative view from the score. The main kind of emotional or I guess the main narrative hook for the score for this one was sort of discovery of understanding death and understanding loss, and evaluating those things. That was kind of Megan's kind of death hook, which started at the beginning of the movie, when Cady was is being driven to her new life. So hopefully this would have a new one. It's something that would be a new thing for her to kind of latch on to and learn, and then that be the kind of the focus. So yeah, no, I mean, I'd obviously love to be a part of it, and it will depend on lots of other things.
There are so many different ways to go with this story, but I mean, it's such a fascinating film and really a fantastic piece of work from you, man. Because I remember in our pre-screening, we had like the music was playing a little bit, and we had Megan talking to us as we were waiting for the movie to start, and it was just everyone was in the moment, and altogether, this is such a great immersive piece of work that I'm glad audiences are getting to see sort of in a big dark theater rather than watching on their phones at home kind of thing. It really speaks to sort of the power of cinema and all the elements that are involved in making a good piece of cinema, which I think you guys have done here and then some. But I mean, again, Anthony, thank you so much for the time today, man, and just keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your support of the film and the score, and for having me on. And yeah, really, really wonderful to talk to you.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.